Hello world. Welcome to my first YouTube video. I'm already so excited to watch this in a few years and cringe because self-growth and evolution are some of my very favorite things. But I'm making this video. It's been created out of the space that I've been working on for a while now, which is called WTT Nutrition. And essentially the whole point of it is I wanted to create a resource for individuals like me who are in this sort of sweet spot of life and reproductive health where we've likely been on birth control for years and years. Maybe we're hitting the point where we want to be a bit more in touch with our bodies again, take a bit of control back. And then also being positioned where having a baby and starting a family may be on the horizon, not necessarily in the next few years, could be within the next decade, and are realizing that there's a lot of information that we just simply do not have, right? Like, what is healthy fertility? How do you approach conception like in a very healthy and nurturing way? And how do you sustain and support a healthy pregnancy? And that was basically the intent for why I created the WTT nutrition space, because my goal is to just offer all of this high quality information to you in a very zero pressure, super education focused way. So a bit about myself. My name is Michelle, and my background is in biology, and my bachelor's in biology, master's in nutrition. So you can determine for yourself if you think I know what the hell I'm talking about. But the interesting part is I actually graduated with both of those health degrees, and I had previously struggled with painful periods for years. And I hit the point where I was like, shouldn't I know enough about this by now? Like how to improve my own fertility? And the answer was no. I felt like I knew nothing. So for the past 5 years, I've been in industry, so in personalized nutrition and biotechnology. So I'm in literature all day. But I also did go down a rabbit hole of fertility and reproductive health. So I have a certification in prenatal nutrition counseling, and also have just been like in this space for quite a long time, but I'm still learning. My goal is to learn with you, and to just condense everything I've read over the years and the research I've read and the experience I have from the human biology side and the nutrition world to give you the information that I think could help you save time, stress, and energy and money down the road. So really hitting that prenatal learning curve well before society tells us we need to. Because if you ask me, this is information that we all absolutely should have by now, well before now. So I want to be part of the chain reaction, right? Where you can get this information or I can provide it. And then when your friends and family start hitting the same life phase as well, you're propagating that information. So we're just all part of this beautiful education supportive network of really lifting women and anyone with a reproductive system truly into this new space of healing and education and wellness. So that's the goal. The point of this video is to give you 5 of my, I guess, top general recommendation tips for things you could start doing today that would directly benefit your fertility. So when I say fertility, all that means is a healthy reproductive system. So what's so beautiful about that is this truly can be for anyone at any time. It's just sort of a buzzword that tends to be associated with conception and pregnancy a lot, but I really, really mean this to apply to absolutely anyone. And everything I'm talking about today can benefit you, which is such a beautiful thing. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is nutrition-based. Of course, that is my area of expertise. And while I have so much to talk about on this topic, the one thing I'll leave you with today is to look at and potentially increase the amount of protein you're getting per day. And the way I like to recommend it is a serving of protein should be able to fit in the palm of your hand. So looking to make sure at every meal you're getting around 1 to 2 of these palmfuls of protein per day. A few of my favorites that are also fertility boosting. We'll talk about that in another video. But fertility friendly foods are just really foods that are nutrient dense. So a few of my favorites are salmon, Greek yogurt, tofu, chicken, chickpeas, protein powders you could even do, and then that would count as a serving. So The reason I'm giving this particular recommendation is most women and most people aren't getting typically enough protein per day, and the threshold for protein needs only increase in pregnancy. So getting in the habit of getting enough protein now is only going to help you hit those higher requirements when the time comes. So it'll be a much easier transition to maintain that level of healthy protein. The second one is very fun. It's a bit different, and it's to start cardiac coherence breath work. And truly, this could be any breath work. I picked cardiac coherence because it's one of the easiest. And the reason this is such a great recommendation is because this is something that I know I'll go into in more detail in the future, but basically you have two activations of the nervous system, so two different parts. And one is the sympathetic nervous system, so the fight or flight. And this is what most of us in modern society are living in most of the time. And you do definitely need a certain degree of sympathetic nervous system activation to get through daily life. Like, the goal is not to necessarily bring this all the way down. The goal of breath work is to activate the other part, the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And what we want to do is take an imbalance, which is where most of us are, and bring it more into balance. And breath work is one of the fastest and most effective ways to do this. So cardiac coherence breathing, you can type it into the Google search bar. There's a lot of really good practices out there. All it is, and I'll explain it and do like a super quick demo. It's a gentle and even inhale through your nose for about 5.5 seconds, and then a gentle, even exhale through the nose for 5.5 seconds. So equal inhale, exhale on repeat. And what this does is, in a matter of minutes, so I tell people to generally shoot for about 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day is a lot easier to stick to. It's a lot easier to factor into your daily schedule. And then you can always work up over time. But 5 minutes will be enough to really tell your body, tell your brain to switch on this parasympathetic nervous system. And you feel the effects of it within minutes. And it's a beautiful thing to start incorporating into your day. All right. The next is not a throwaway. Stay with me. It's to just focus on sleep. You see my cat, it's reflection in the TV. Basically, the reason I'm recommending sleep, and I know you've heard it a million times, but sleep, quality sleep, is one of the easiest and most effective ways to balance hormones. And that's a buzzword, but truly it's actually the direct outcome of about 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night is a more balanced hormonal profile. And when I say hormones, this is everything from stress hormones, metabolic hormones, sleep hormones, reproductive hormones. So that's absolutely something that we want to do to really support fertility. So one of my best pieces of advice for this is not necessarily one particular thing. It's taking a look at your bedtime routine and noticing the areas or the things or the tweaks you could do to make it easier, supportive, more beneficial, and more comfortable for quality sleep. So I'll give you a few examples of what I've done. We live in a city, so I noticed that at night there was a lot of ambient light going on, which was affecting my ability to sleep. Also, we have melatonin, which is the darkness hormone, that is sensing the darkness and sort of telling your brain, okay, it's time to wind down, it's time to go to sleep. So what I did was I got one of those like $10 eye masks from Amazon, and that like really gives your brain total darkness. And that has really helped my sleep. I also noticed I would wake up periodically, so I wouldn't have consolidated sleep. It would be fragmented because of dryness. I'd wake up with like a super dry nose and throat, so I got one of those little humidifiers. And now I can sleep through the night. So these little tweaks, another thing I would do is I was really having trouble giving up the screens 30 minutes before bedtime. I don't think I'm alone in this. But what I would do is I switched the time I would read. Well, if I wasn't reading, I would read like, okay, this is the reading time, is 30 minutes before bed. So I would make sure that if I was going to read that day, I was going to do it at night, and the phone was off, the TV was off. That really did help. And even like moving the phone where it charged, not by the bed, I would move it like a little further out of the reach, the reach zone. So little things you can do, healthy sleep habits, There is a general recommendation, like I said, the 7 to 9 hours per night, getting a consistent bedtime. So within 1 to 2 hours of going to bed around the same night, and then 1 to 2 hours of waking up at the same time each morning really does help with consistency. It does improve your sleep. And other things you could do is just like really noticing what are the blocks. And obviously we can't control everything. Like, we live with other humans, we live with animals, this life goes on. You may be a shift worker. So what are the biggest blocks to you getting consolidated healthy sleep? And are there things you could do to either tweak, improve, or make the whole experience of sleep more comfortable? Because really, it's just going to have very drastic benefits for you if you can even like sleep an hour more than you are currently, or start turning off lights around sunset. Like, not all of them, but just like getting your brain more signaled for sleep than normal. So it could be like half the lights in the house, not all of them, but just so your brain starts getting the message a bit earlier and you're being supportive of having healthy sleep at night. So I hope that helps. The next is looking at the toxicant exposure in our home. And toxins and toxicants are essentially used interchangeably, so I'll do that to avoid confusion. But unfortunately, there is a lot of mechanistic and biochemical evidence that does support the potentially damaging role of current chemicals in our environment on fertility. More on that. But there are a few chemicals that have been identified as endocrine disrupting, and those are obviously the ones that we're going to want to minimize exposure to. Is it possible to minimize exposure to all chemicals in today's day and age? No. No, it's not. But however, I recommend starting in the home because this is typically an area we have the most control over. So a few swaps that you can do is, if you have air fresheners or like chemical home scents, what I would recommend is switching them out for either a soy-based or wax-based candle. They're a bit more expensive, but if you're attached to the idea of, having something aromatic in your home, these are typically less. They typically will not at all contain the same inhalants that are found in these commercially available home fresheners. So that is one swap I really recommend. The next is if you heat up food, try not to do it in plastic containers. You can store food in plastic if that's what you have, but when you heat it up, I really recommend glass or stainless steel. The same goes for water bottles. So if you are drinking out of a plastic water bottle, switching to glass or stainless steel, something that you're reaching for every day, could be a really good idea. The other one that's been really linked to fertility outcomes, the chemical, is BPA, which is found in a lot of those plastics and food storage containers. So the other place it's actually found is thermal paper receipts. And when you touch a thermal paper receipt, there actually is a high degree of absorption from the skin. So if I'm touching a receipt, sometimes you can't avoid it. I just make sure to wash my hands after. However, if you work in retail or food service, you're touching these things all damn day. Because I worked in a restaurant and I touch these things all damn day. And my recommendation would be, if you really can't avoid it, which you can't, they make these silicone finger protectors on Amazon. They're like super cheap. And that could just provide an additional barrier between you and hundreds of receipts per day. So that's just an additional tip I like to make if that is your situation. And then the last thing is movement. And this is similar to my recommendation about sleep. So optimal exercise, I'll just give you the research-backed regimen, I guess, and it's at least 30 minutes of moderate activity per day, most days of the week. So this is like 4 to 5 days per week. And I think there's a lot of stress that we place upon ourselves, a lot of pressure to hit the perfect ratio of like strength training to yoga, to Pilates. And I really can't emphasize it enough. The best workout routine is the one you actually do, whether this is a daily walk while you're listening to a podcast, whether this is like literally anything. Sometimes during the day, I'll put on one of those 30-minute walking workout videos, do like it in 10-minute chunks during my breaks, because luckily I work from home. And that counts, okay? That counts. And the beautiful thing, like if a workout routine stresses you because you've never had one or it's been a long time since you have, if you do the things you consider small consistently, hitting those bigger plans is going to be a lot easier. So just please have a lot of grace with yourself. The point of this is just to pump really fresh oxygenated blood to all four parts of our body. And that, of course, includes the reproductive system, which is always looking for oxygen and nutrients to flow to it. So that really is a wonderful thing to do to start incorporating into your day, even if it is those 5 to 10-minute bursts at a time. So those are my biggest tips. I'm so excited to like go into detail on all of them because that was very surface level, but just an introduction for things you could start to today. And I am so excited to welcome you to this space, and I cannot wait to create more.